record to the computer. All right. Are we recording in scrotum sound? Yes, we
Oh,
are.
yes.
All right. Well, welcome. This is technically Cinema Slaughter's first video. I mean, we've done a video before with a friend of ours, Terror at Synthai, and we are here with friends of ours from the Grape Vinyl on Instagram. If you're not following them, you should if you're a fan of music in general and vinyl collecting specifically. This page is to die for. So it's a husband and wife team, some of the nicest people I've ever met. And I love you guys. You just are always fun to talk to. I talk to Omar about you guys quite frequently, and I'm like, hey, it's
All the
gonna
time.
happen. We're gonna get it done. So yeah, I'm really excited to meet with you guys like this and have it be like our inaugural video. So this will be our first YouTube video. So welcome.
Awesome.
No pressure.
How cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
man. For anyone who likes horror music specifically.
Yes, we do. We do tend to post a lot of horror movie soundtracks on our page,
Yes.
and kind of how we made this connection.
Yeah, and I think you guys are really posting more horror now than ever before.
We truly are.
Yeah. But we tend to save so we post a lot of scary like you and I, Lenny, we've talked about there's like horror elements in a lot of non-horror soundtrack specific music.
Absolutely.
Especially these days, like so many artists, maybe you argued before too, but I'm seeing it so much these days. Artists are inspired by horror soundtracks to create,
different soundscapes.
But anyways, specifically if you're into horror soundtracks, just follow us like in the fall, and then because like that's when we go hardcore on the soundtracks, and then you can just like unfollow and rejoin again the next fall.
No, don't listen to that advice. Don't unfollow. You must keep following. It's a great page. I don't want you guys to lose not a single follower. So yeah.
We will sprinkle them around year round, but we do go the hardest over Halloween, and even we'll get certain soundtracks in like June. We're like, well, that's put away for October exclusively.
but that's our stuff. Like we had a year because we were so into horror movies growing up, but like we never had the right situation.
Yeah, where you could share that with someone.
And then like, then when we got together, it was like, let's try to watch 30 horror movies in 30 days. And that's like,
we had our list. We did really well. I think we did like 25. We got pretty close.
That's pretty damn good.
Before child. Absolutely before.
I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, especially with an infant, but yeah, before pre-child, that makes more sense. But yeah. So we are here to kick off a list for everybody. We're gonna go round robin. It's not necessarily in order, but we're picking our 5, some of our most favorite slow burn horror films.
It was rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had 7 and I can't knock any of them off, man. So I'm gonna have to put top 2 at the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we were saying earlier, it's like if something pops in your head and you're like, oh, I didn't add this earlier, but yeah, that's going to make my list now. Or we talk about Omar's. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer here. So we're going to get started. And you guys kick it off. I mean, you're the guests, so guests of honor. So what's your first that you'd like to share?
You like perhaps what we thought, or do you want to just dive into our?
Yeah, you talk about the first one, but I'll mention something first. So like it got us thinking first, like what does it mean to be like a slow burn movie?
Yeah.
Because there's sometimes like I don't think it's necessarily like, this is gonna sound counterintuitive, but it's not just necessarily a movie that's just slow for the sake of like it's almost like it needs to be done for an artistic purpose. Like you could, because a slow burner, you could argue like comparatively, any movie from like this, any horror movie from the 70s and 80s, like a slow burner compared to one now. And so that they would arguably dominate the list. So you have to think about it within that context. It almost has to be like slow for a narrative purpose,
to build the tension.
Well, and here's the thing. And so like when I talk about certain movies, like John Carpenter's The Thing, that movie's smoldering the entire film. And it starts off with action. There, the dog, You know, they're shooting at the dog. They shoot people. McCready has to get in the helicopter with Copper and fly to the Norwegian base camp. There's momentum building right from the get-go. And I don't necessarily feel like The Thing is a slow burn for me. For me, The Thing is developed and almost instantaneously. It it takes a long time before you get to the point with Copper getting his arms bitten off, you know, with when what's his name's chest opens up. That to me is kind of, you know, you've already met the halfway mark, and there's so much tension and so much going on. The dogs have already been attacked, and you know what I mean. So I a movie like that is kind of not a slow burn for me, you know what I mean? Or like Dawn of the Dead, where it has all of these elements, but the story, it happens almost immediately. Whereas some of the selections on my list, it the freight train doesn't get moving until like an hour into the film, because they've spent so much time developing what's about to happen. So when the shit hits the fan, you're like, oh my god, you know, and it's taken a long time to build up that momentum. So yeah, I agree with you. Sometimes it's for artistic sake.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not always to the film's strength. Sometimes it's to the film's detriment too. So we could also talk.
Right, there are
like
some
there's
that,
some that
Oh,
are
good point.
like
I agree. Like there's some that are almost too slow.
and that's a big matter of debate. Don't, like, I'm not saying,
Oh yeah, that's
we're not
gonna
speaking
be...
objectively. Anyone watching, we're speaking very subjectively. Like I would argue, because I know there's probably a lot of people that love The Witch, but that one to me felt like it was like a slow burner that didn't deliver. How slow. I know. And Omar, Lenny,
That's on my list, man. That's my
he told me that you loved it, so that's why I was like prefacing that, like, don't kick me off. But
Well, and that's the beauty
No,
of
no.
this, is like there's no right or wrong answer, really.
It's very
You
subjective.
know, like you said, it is very subjective, but
yeah, and if I watched 100 new horror movies, I might gain a new appreciation for The Witch that I didn't have.
So true.
It's based off of what I've seen.
I can't even. I can half agree with you, but it's been so long since I've watched The Witch that I actually want to come at it again from a different lens, because I can't wholeheartedly jump in.
yeah.
I can understand that.
Yep.
Totally.
So
Right.
so give us your number one. Yeah, Brooklyn, kick it off for us.
Were we starting here or with?
Yeah, wherever you want. I don't care.
Okay, well,
Do it.
I was gonna start with like a really awesome Canadian film that for me was almost too slow, but I love it. I've watched it a few times now, and it's one of his favorite horror movies, Pontypool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Pontypool.
I'm a fan of this movie.
It is fantastic, but the first time I saw it, I had my issues with the pacing, and now I love it for it so much.
I think that might be a movie I have to revisit.
Yeah.
It's gosh, it's so different, and it has so many, I guess, I want to say like generally unlikable qualities, but it's sort of like so many wrong things that it just comes together in such a right way. It's hard to explain, but
I feel that.
yeah, but that movie has like this this incredibly slow build that's very much based around like words, and it's just because it's taking place at a language and tension, and just the way people talk, and the topics that, even if it's not directly scary things that are being discussed, and the things that are scary are integrated very subtly and slowly, and it is it's not it's like it's not trying to be liked in a funny way, and maybe that's unfair to say, but it's got this quality to it that, and when there are the scares, they're not going for a traditional scare. Are there spoilers on this podcast?
So that's the thing. Our podcast is filled with spoilers. So
all the time,
and especially here's the rub. It's like, especially with some of the movies that we've been talking about, 20, 30, there's movies that we reviewed like 40 years old, if you don't know this movie by now, and I tell the disclaimer, stop the podcast, go watch the movie, and then come back to it because we're going to talk about spoilers. So go ahead.
Okay. I'm not gonna I'll be good. I'm not gonna give away the twist because that movie has such a cool, unique, one of a kind twist.
The idea behind it is awesome. Yeah.
And if you guys can let the rabbit out of that hat if you want. But I'll tell you the one thing is it's got a death scene that's done completely auditory.
Right.
Where this is part of the build because this is like before you see the actual manifestation in physical form.
Right.
There's a death scene that's just like a radio broadcast of someone that's getting attacked or infected or whatever. And
right.
So cool that you can feel that kind of tension and fear from just a broadcast, and that to me, and then that culminates in you actually getting to see it later on the movie. But we're talking like an hour in at least. So,
right.
Good example.
Yeah, that's a great example. Wasn't there a scene in the film, because I only saw the movie once, and that was like when it first came out. So there's a scene in the movie where all of these creatures are in the recording studio or whatever. They're in the radio station, and it's silent, right? And they're like walking through the radio station. That silence is creepy as hell. It's when you don't hear anything, but these creatures are present. That really added to so much tension for me. I really enjoyed the build up in that movie. So you're right, Omar. I think I need to watch Pontypool again because I haven't seen it in a while. But that's definitely a great movie.
It was zombification. It was a virus that was through sound, through words, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like the words themselves became viral somehow, if I remember correctly. And they basically had to recreate language so that it wouldn't have the virus attached to the words, because the words themselves, you'd hear them and you'd become infected. So I mean, the idea behind it I thought was brilliant.
It's weird. It wasn't even the words; it was the semantic understanding of the word. So if you could change the understanding of what that word meant to you, then you could cure. It's so bizarre. And the last thing I'll say with Pontypool, because we're probably talking about way too much, is the soundtrack. The guy was inspired by Philip Glass. It's because Philip Glass is big on repetition, and when you get infected, you repeat phrases.
Right.
And I thought that was a really brilliant little idea for him to kind of base I love it when people when soundtrack designers base the music off of the monster. I think that's like the coolest thing.
Yeah, that's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Do you guys have a record you want to share?
We didn't grab it, but TerraVision Records did press it, and I believe they still have copies. And it's a fantastic soundtrack.
Yeah, and it's not as popular of a movie, so they even said like this was a weird one for us, and I was like, guys, I'm so glad you pressed this. Like, I can't believe you did, and I'm so thankful.
Yeah, so great selection, Pontypool. It's not one I would have thought of, and I didn't. Luckily, my list is a little bit different so far. So, but that's a good one. Omar, what do you got for us?
All right, so since we already covered The Witch, that was was going to be on the.
We didn't cover The Witch.
Well, I mean, you just you said that So all right, we didn't cover The Witch, but we mentioned The Witch.
It's so funny because The Witch has been one of the most divisive horror movies in a long time. I mean, there were people like in the theater with me, like 5 of us went. We saw the movie, and there was like 3 of us that really were into it, and 2 of us were like, this movie sucked. What the fuck are we watching? Like, it's taking so long and nothing happens, and then at the end, really? Like, and you're gonna live deliciously? Is, I'm like, are you kidding? That was brilliant.
Yes. What's it? Black Peter or whatever?
Black Phillip.
Black Phillip, that's it. Yeah.
I love it.
It's funny because I'm usually on the side of not liking movies. I'm like a snob. I'll admit it. I'm like really snobby when it comes to movies. But this one it was so dreadful. It was just so dark, and it required a lot of attention because they were speaking in that very old style.
Yeah.
And so I had to really sit. Yeah.
Yeah. The accents were very thick.
Heavy, exactly the way they were speaking, and whatever. I mean, it's not Middle English, but it's definitely an older form of English. And I'm sitting there like focused, I trying to understand, okay, well, what did that mean? But still, even if you didn't understand a lot of it, you still know what was going on with the story. Almost like sometimes the silent movies, you know what's happening, you just don't have to hear what they're saying. But yeah, I just thought it was, like I said, that sense of dread, the this impending doom that's going to happen, and you just have to be patient for it. And I don't know, I thought the payoff was kind of good, because I'm a big history fan, and watching the witches flying around and this very I've seen a lot of paintings that had those images and woodcuts and stuff like that, and seeing it on the screen was really really awesome for me.
It's funny because when I was a kid, I was into Wicca and I was into, reading up on witchcraft and everything. So, yay.
Yeah.
So I was into all that stuff, and paganism was a big deal, and pagan horror movies became a big deal for me. Reading up on the history of witchcraft and what they were saying, like, the making of potions and all this other stuff, and a flying potion, you needed the fat of an
unbaptized
baptized child. And so when they steal the baby and you see her with a mortar and pestle and she's like I was like, oh my God, is she rendering?
That's gruesome.
Is she rendering the fat? And then she covers herself in the baby, in the gore. And I was like, wow. I mean, they were really just digging into witchcraft lore. And then subsequently, from watching that movie, I really appreciated it more because of I found out about Mark Corvin and the soundtrack that he put together, which we talked about. It's just a glorious soundtrack. I mean, one of my favorite. It's so damn good. So
the one thing I'll also say about The Witch that I think is super cool is that, okay, so a lot of time horror movies have like the supernatural thing that you're afraid of, and then it's got like the real thing that was like the real thing that you should be afraid of. Let me be more clear. So in the case of The Witch, there is the witch, but it's also directly associated with, like, I think it's called in literature the garrison mentality, which is like you are trying to create a fortress from the natural world, because the natural world has all of these evils that you need to defend yourself from.
That's true. I like that. You feel like that is kind of symbolizing that, like the movie.
Yeah. Like you get because they're like kind of colonizing that space, and in that space is in these natural threats, and like from like a biblical perspective, anything like seen as satanic, like witchcraft, all of that is coming from the natural world just as much as the other threat is. So they really merge the natural world with sort of those pagan, I guess, scary kind of things, and they do that quite well, where it feels like the evil is an extension of the natural world, and they're kind of conquering that as much as they're conquering any of the other challenges they're facing as colonizers. So I thought that was really sweet.
Reminds me of that M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Which one?
There's why isn't that on
Happening?
That is that The Happening with Mark Wahlberg?
Oh no! I think it was the other one where
The Village.
The Village.
Oh, The Village. I saw that.
That popped into my head.
No, it's true. I see, but that's the same. But that's actually, it's funny because that is exactly what they were doing. Is that only the garrison was the natural world that they were defending, the people in the city. They thought they were doing the right thing. Meanwhile, they were like a cult. But
meanwhile, they were a cult.
That's super.
No, but that's one of the things that got to me, that the presence of evil dwells in nature.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is the thought process. And for me, it was like, there are setting is everything when it comes to a horror movie. And I love when the protagonists are put into a position of just total weakness. They are at the mercy of what's going on.
Right.
That speaks to the next one on our list. But
yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Really
and I think The Witch is one of those things. It's like for me, like the fall of the House of Usher, where
Yeah.
where the characters they rise and fall by the house. When they die, the family line dies, the house splits apart and crumbles into that tarn and disappears. So it's as if they never existed at all. And I love that type of thing, because that that family, they were swallowed up, they were subsumed by nature, the witch, and the witch comes and takes them, right? So she becomes with that coven. And just imagine, like, that house is just in a couple of seasons, that house is completely gone and reclaimed by nature again. You know what I mean? It's just like you grow to think of what kind of despair leads a family down that path. And religion is the key element of that despair, because
it was also pride. They were like, at the very beginning, they were kind of like, challenging the church and, being very critical. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go off and do it on my own. It takes his family and,
yeah,
the rest is history.
So I wasn't going to take this out now, but I might as well. So I don't know if you could see this.
Oh, it's sort of coming in and out.
It's tough to see, but anyway, it's I brought out a couple of records.
Oh, you got us. She'll be back in just a second.
Yeah, I think you might have to block out the background, Lenny. The
water, you have to.
Yeah,
or else it's not going to happen, man.
All right, let's see.
Yeah, no, you can't. No, because I think you have to turn off the background.
I am.
Which?
Oh, there we. Oh, okay. Nice.
That's a cool background, anyway.
So here's the witch.
And, it's a really glossy sleeve you have that kept in.
I know.
You're not sleeve, are you?
We have almost bought that record so many times.
Yeah.
We should own it, right?
You should own this one.
Really should.
I know. The repress actually sold before I could dump. Oh, and he's got the starburst.
Oh, it's such
this is the silver gray thing. But anyway, that's on my list. Like I said, they're not in any order, but the witch is definitely in there as a slow burn, because up until it develops, right? It develops over that time frame, but it does. Yeah. See, I knew you guys posted that during the season.
That was his Valentine's Day present, I think, last year.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
It came out on Valentine's Day. I thought it was funny.
If you to their label and you get all their subscription ones, they actually give you all the really nice like hand pours that are even prettier than these ones.
Oh,
you gotta try hard.
You do.
And we're like, so we're not trying hard. Yeah.
How much is their monthly subscription? Is it an annual one, like Waxwork?
You're offhand.
I don't know if it's annual. I don't know. I think it's. I don't want to guess. So I don't know.
I'll have to check into it.
It's a reasonable price, and they're super cool, low budget indie rock lovers. Like they'll put stuff that you were just like, it just drops your jaw. It's like, oh my god,
they do. And they're gorgeous.
They did the Unsolved Mysteries one, didn't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was
I have that one. That's actually really good.
Yeah.
All right. So so we got the witch and Pontypool. Sexy.
Yes.
All right. What's your number 4?
Wait, Lenny, what was your number 5?
I never call this one.
I did the witch.
Oh, you did. Oh, you did the witch.
Yeah,
too.
I was going to save it for a little bit later because I've talked about it before, but I want to put it in there. What I love, especially on that soundtrack, there's not a single electronic instrument. It's all done by instruments in that period of time. So it's brilliant. I loved it.
Awesome.
So our next one has like no soundtrack?
No, we have no soundtrack, but we're on
because it has no soundtrack.
It has no soundtrack. It does.
Oh, okay.
While we're on the track of witches, I'm sure you all have heard of the Blair Witch.
Yes. It's funny. I was just thinking about this movie, and I was like, you know what?
The remake. Just kidding.
Yeah, but the remake. No, part 2.
Oh, there's a part
I never saw part 2.
I didn't even know there was a part 2.
I heard. Yeah,
there was a part 2, and then there was a reboot, and the reboot was just as bad. Part 2 was like, it was like watching just explosive diarrhea up against the screen. Like there was no rhyme or reason. Man. It just was all over the place. I wanted to like it, but it just felt like I was on acid, and it wasn't a good trip.
I don't see why anyone would want to make a remake. Like it's You know, there's some movies that just should not be remade, and those remakes are always so forgotten. You know, it's like, why would you want to remake that?
You cannot remake the Blair Witch. Like it has that candid quality that you can't recapture. Like it's so believable that it's someone's like candid camera.
Especially in like drop like 97 or whatever it was. Like, no one was used to that. Like now it's like the thing to do.
Yeah. It was like one of the first websites that they developed for like people going onto the website to see additional stuff that you couldn't get anywhere else. It was like it was multimedia.
It was very like the buzz around it was excellent. Like they really knew what they were doing with the hype. The hype was really intelligently done. And the whole idea is if you're going to remake it, you're eliminating one of the most important aspects, and that's the hype. How you publicize it. That was almost part and parcel with the movie. That was part of the experience. So it just seemed very strange that they would try to remake it.
That's so true.
But yeah, slow burner. Why do you think the Blair Witch Project is a good slow burner?
I just think it builds so much tension throughout the film. You get really attached to the character and their narratives, and by the end of it, you're so invested and scared with them. I feel like it's a great example of using that tension.
And it gets so dismal. And it gets to the point where you're like, shit, there's no way that this is going to end well. And I just want to know how.
And then the climax scared me so much at the end.
Tell me what scared you the most. Tell me what scared you the most. I'm going to tell you. It's probably the same thing that scares the crap out of everyone.
The mirror scene?
The very end where the guy is staring at the wall.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
He's just staring at the wall. He's like just terrified. He can't look away. It's just, you're like, what the fuck is happening right now?
And it was foreshadowed, earlier. So when I saw it, I was like, oh, damn. But then it ends, boom,
Yeah. No, it was so good.
And kudos to
I get goosebumps just thinking
the townspeople actors in that movie.
Yeah.
They don't ruin it. There's
right.
But they add to the freakiness.
They add to the believability that you are in like this play. Like they did I know that movie does actually. I bet you guys might know more than us. That movie probably does receive some criticisms. But for us, it's like we watched it recently. And we're like, man, this one held up. Yeah. Where so many others I've heard, lauded as classics. I don't think they do as well. Like that movie.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I'm not a fan of found footage. In fact, 9 out of 10 movies, if I'm like scrolling to watch a movie and it's a found footage trailer, I back out of it. I go right to the next selection. What else am I watching? Because found footage movies don't really do anything for me. There's a few of them that I like Cloverfield.
Okay.
So I like Cloverfield, but only because I love monster movies. And I kept hoping for more monsters. I kept hoping to see more. But
there's nothing Blair Witch.
No.
Yeah, well, there was like you don't see it. But I do like some of the conceit of the Blair Witch, like how they went in there and did it like that. Kind of makes sense. We're filming a documentary, you know what I mean? So it makes sense that they're going in there and doing what they're doing. Oftentimes it just becomes tedious.
But I'd give them also credit for being so early in the game and that style. You know what I mean? Like, we don't like a lot of atmospheric black metal, but the first people that did a good atmospheric black metal album, it's hard to like, you kind of can hold it to at least a slightly different standard. Maybe not.
That's fair. That's fair.
No, I agree with you, and that's this is one of the found footage movies that I enjoy seeing. I've seen it multiple times, and I do like it, and I think they did it right.
For me, the creepy part was when they found the stick men hanging.
Yeah.
That gets me.
And it's just such good practical effects, and it's so
I grew
subtle.
up in a house in a forest, and we had this old little shack on just over the fence on the property behind us, and my brother always told me a witch lived in there. So when I saw the Blair Witch, it was like my whole childhood.
Oh my God.
Like it was the scariest thing I've ever seen. Like it's all real.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Well, we have the property that we live on. We've been here for a long time, and when we moved here from Long Island, it's as you imagine. So Long Island, New York, there's it's overcrowded, right? So it's bustling or whatever else. And we moved upstate New York. It's about an hour and 10 minutes north of Manhattan. And so we have 5 acres of land, and all of our neighbors have 5 acres of land, 5 acres of land around us. And so there's tons of woods in the back. We could go camping right out our back door and just walk into the woods, because there was a massive area where someone on the hill behind us, they have like 30 acres of land, and they only built like on 3 acres at the top in the corner. So we have all of this unused land that we used to use up as kids. We had quads, we had everything else, and part of that is the creepiness of having the thick woods in your area, and you feel like, oh my God, there's something lives here.
Right? It kind of, you have that embedded in you if you've grown up in that sort of setting.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so it definitely puts you in the mindset, especially if you're like, I'm sure, like if you guys are anything like I am and Omar, overactive imaginations, especially when you're watching movies, or you immerse yourself into these types of images, and or even the soundscapes of these horror movies, they put you directly into wherever they want to put you. So they create this soundscape of fear, of trepidation, of loneliness. You're forlorn, um, or insert mood here, and that's really what I love about not just um, the horror movie in general. It's probably why I love a horror movie that's nihilistic, and then where you really don't walk away with a feel good movie. You know what I mean? Like they
Like to like call someone you
Yeah,
love just
yeah.
so
yeah, like I just watched something so horrible. You know what I mean? Like I want to feel that sense of, like when I see George Romero's Dawn of the Dead, there's that sense that this is everywhere. There's a sense of societal collapse.
Yeah.
And you get that right in the beginning of Dawn of the Dead with they're in the TV station, and they're talking about, how to overcome this. What should we do? They got scientists. No one's listening to each other. Everyone's just waiting for their turn to speak. And there's like, it's again, like, people are not really focused on, how to come together. And that sense of that we're not going to get out of this is really what makes a good horror movie. So like you said earlier, there's not a feeling that you're going to come away like this is not going to end well. And so to bring it back around, I love movies where you feel like this is not going to end well. And it ended up well for the people that made that movie. They did it on like a $22,000 budget. They filmed it in 8 days. And then they made $240 million.
That's wild.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I think before that, Halloween was like the most successful independent film, technically. It was Halloween, and then after that, it was Blair. It was the Blair Witch Project. So, I mean, just imagine you have a $22,000 budget and you make $240 million. I mean, it's
I
insane.
think what was it? Paranormal even made more.
Yeah,
and on
Paranormal
a cheaper.
Activity.
Yeah.
They made it for less money,
Yeah.
and they even and made more. So
Yeah.
That's
I don't.
I
controversial one, but that scared the socks out of me. I'm not gonna lie.
it did. I think it actually it also had a lot of atmosphere. Like you were sitting there watching it tensed up. Like I definitely enjoyed it.
So uncanny. Like that just made my hair stand. That attic scene in that show. Like I know it had its issues, but that was just scary. That was just plain scary.
I'm going to be honest. I've never seen it.
Paranormal?
I swear to God.
Really? Oh wow. See, I know
I've never seen
it's
any
found,
of them.
It's found footage, but it's good. I never saw any of the sequels, but the original, I really enjoyed it, man.
I know, and I've been talking like last time we spoke. That was a movie that we was on our list that we were talking about.
Yeah.
I need to see it. I never have. And I think part of it at first was like, another found footage, and I just got so annoyed. And
it was done intelligently, I think. It's how it's done. Yeah.
It threw away, Lenny. It threw away a lot of the things that make a lot of older horror movies loved.
Yeah.
Which is like maybe a reason why a lot of people would immediately not like it. But and instead of those qualities, instead made like these really for its time realistic modern like experiences and fears, which are probably dated now. It's been a while since I've seen it.
Yeah.
But I just remember this. I was watching.
I remember that
the first time I saw it. I just remember that feeling, and I honestly can count on my two hands the amount of times I felt in my life where I'm like, oh, I'm actually like I'm really scared. Like this one's actually got me.
Yeah.
Like
I love that.
I just remember feeling so excited about that that sensation. And I didn't go into that movie expecting it.
As someone who grew up in like a suburban home, just normal little life, flickering around with Ouija boards and just living it to the best. That movie scared me because it made me all your fears could manifest in the way you think that it could.
Okay. All right. Well, you guys sold me. I mean, I'm going to see it. I'm going to check it out. Maybe I'll watch it this weekend.
Yeah, hopefully it's not too dated.
Yeah, I know it's been a while.
I don't know if it survived the test of time. But
I don't know.
Really,
but there are movies from the 70s that I look at now. I'm like, oh my God, this still looks and still plays out so good, So a movie that's maybe, what is it, 8 years old? It can't be more than that.
Yeah, you'd be surprised what's happened because it's very technology based, so you'd be surprised.
Oh yeah.
But
okay.
Just give it a shot.
I will. All right, so Omar, you're next.
All right. I chose A Bone Tomahawk.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
This was going to be on my selection. It dropped off my list. Go ahead, Omar. Go ahead.
It was hard. Like, again, I got 7, and so I'm like, the two on that I was kind of thinking of taking off were The Witch and Bone Tomahawk. I'm like, because Bone Tomahawk it's not really horror per se, but it's got a lot of very horror elements.
It's a horror movie.
No.
Yeah, I mean, all right, fine.
It's a horror movie.
It's disturbing as hell.
I knew going into that I couldn't handle it. I pieced out at a certain time. I was pregnant. I was vulnerable. I can't handle this. I'm so happy I didn't. I'm like, Dylan, explain to me what happened. He's describing scenes. I'm like, thank you. I left the room. Thank you.
You made the right decision.
Yeah.
The ending pays for that entire film. The characters in that film are so quirky and fun to watch and listen to. And I mean, 2 words, Kurt Russell.
Dude, it's like it reminds, because I was saying Tombstone too, because Tombstone's like one of my favorite movies of all time.
Me too. I love it.
Why would I love a 90s Western as much as any other movie I've ever seen? But it's because of Kurt Russell's he also like shadow directed that movie, by the way.
He did.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, Cosmatos. We were talking about this. Oh God, Beyond the Black Rainbow is the son of the man who directed Tombstone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Directed, I say directed.
Yeah.
Tombstone.
But Kurt Russell took it. In any case, it was like he was back. Only now it's like incestuous
troglodytes. Yeah.
Troglodytes, cave dwellers, and the whole thing. It was like Tombstone meets like the coolest X-Files episode ever kind of thing. There's that X-Files episode that has like a similar sort of thing going on with like inbreeding and terror. And in any case, I forget the name of it's a really cool episode. It was one that like got some hot water.
Oh yes, I know exactly the one you're talking about. And the funny thing is, I haven't seen all of the episodes of the X-Files, but that one was one of the ones I saw, and I remember I think someone was kept under a bed or something. Like there was all this inbreeding. It was just really disturbing. I was like shocked at how just brutal that episode was. But yeah, I could definitely see a resemblance there with Bon Tomahawk.
I gotta let you talk more about it though, because sorry, you just kind of got us excited.
Oh yeah, no, it's cool. I also, again, I'm a big history fan, and the way that it played out reminds me of like certain things that were documented in history and how they interact, and send someone over this way. It just played out like a very, like, whoever wrote it and directed it also had an understanding of history and how things play out historically. And I've read similar things in historical documents where it just had this feel of it of have the thing about it. And of course there's that one scene that I think everyone saw it, they were like, oh my god, it was just so brutal, man, so brutal.
Everything that takes place in like that circular cave
yes
made is straight terror and awkward and awful from everything
right.
that I need out of this room.
Yeah.
I'm the first person to say I'm so happy I didn't see it.
And like,
have you seen it? Have you seen it since then, Brooklyn?
Sorry, what?
Have you seen it since then, or have you not watched?
I still, honestly, I haven't. Just how he described it to me is that it's going to be something I can't unsee, and I'm still a very sensitive kid, even though I love horror movies.
Yeah, you know what it is.
You can't unsee it. I agree with that.
It's the. It really is, man. I mean, it was just, I remember I recommended it for a friend of my former roommate when I lived in Texas. And he decided to watch it, right? And then I go upstairs to my room and I'm, whatever, doing, on the computer or whatever. And then I hear him go, oh my God. I'm like, yep. That was the scene. That had to be it.
I think everyone who watches this movie, and this is another one of those love it or hate it movies. My girlfriend Anita, we love horror movies. We love watching them together, but we don't have this necessarily the same tastes in those movies. So and she's like, oh, I saw this movie, you would love it, but I hated it. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. So it's like, I don't know. I'll drag her to just about anything that I can. And if it's got an Italian director tied to it, I'm all in on it. So, but any case, this movie was one of those movies where she was like, it was okay. It was just all right. But for me, I love Kurt Russell, and just in anything that he does, it even if he's like third billing, he could the what do you call it? The Christmas.
I was just thinking about
Christmas movie that he's got
Santa Claus,
going on Netflix. He plays Santa Claus. I don't give a damn. That's like Escape from New York for me. It's got Kurt Russell in it. I don't care. It's Escape from Santa's Workshop. You know what I mean? Like, I just love Kurt Russell so much.
Can I make a really random comment about that just because it's hilarious?
Yeah.
Kurt Russell bought Italian smoked meat off my grandpa.
What?
Because he works at a farmer's market in the Muskokas in Ontario, where Kurt Russell has a lovely cottage, and he had no idea. He came with Goldie Hawn, and they bought a bunch of meat off him. And he's like, "Oh, Jimmy, those were lovely customers." And my he's an Italian old man. My dad's like, "Dad, that was Kurt Russell."
Oh wow!
Oh my God, that's awesome.
So I think that was.
I love that. Yeah, that's a great story.
That is hilarious.
Kurt Russell can do no wrong. When I was a kid, I wanted to be Snake Plissken. You know what I mean? Like, those are the movies that I grew up with, and that was it for me. Like, if I could be Snake Plissken and fuck with the president and give him the wrong tape and everything, like, I wanted to do all those things. Like, that's probably where I got my sensibilities from. Like, the middle finger that I have to this day is probably because of those type of anti-establishment movies, and they kind of put you in the mindset of not to be blindly patriotic. I mean, there's a dangerous element to that blind patriotism, and I think we see it today. Not to get political, but I'm just saying, I think there's a danger.
Blind allegiance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so anyway, but so Kurt is the man. Thank you for that story. I love that. So okay. So we got round 2.
All right.
Now,
All
you
right.
mentioned something earlier that you watched Bone Tomahawk and you were terrified and you couldn't watch the end of it.
I couldn't.
Because you were pregnant at the time. So obviously I've never been pregnant, but my mom was pregnant and
Wow.
she was pregnant with me. And this is a slow burn for me. So this
Rosemary,
is
Totally.
this is Rosemary's Baby.
That's on my list.
So this is such a slow, but this is like one of the quintessential modern horror films for me. I love this movie. My mom and dad saw this movie when my mom was pregnant with me, and it was one of those things where my mom's name is Rosemary.
Oh
yes.
Oh
So
my God.
Not Rosemary, obviously Rosemary's Baby, but she's Rosemary's Baby. And so I got this version. I don't know if you could see the smoky.
Oh, the nice smoky.
Yeah, I love smoky vinyl.
Awesome.
That's still available.
Yeah, you could get this one.
You know what? The only reason we haven't picked it up is because we haven't revisited the movie in so long.
Oh,
and
yeah?
I feel like if we watched it again, we'd probably run on the website and
Yeah.
have it. But
This is
that's
definitely one to get. It's you know, I mean, it's just one to have because it's a classic film. It's a classic film. I love the setting, and again, we talk about a haunted house, and it's not necessarily, it doesn't revolve around the house, but this the setting of this place being a locus of witchcraft and Satanism. So the house is a catalyst for the for Rosemary to become impregnated by what she thinks is her husband's seed, but it's the devil's seed. And I love the conceit here. I love how she slowly builds up this fear. You know, we talk about this. You hear about this type of movie. Obviously, as a man, I'm not. I'll never be able to experience, this type of odd feeling. But I was married at the time, and I actually had pangs of childbirth when my wife at the time, when she was going through this. I had sympathy pregnancy. I was going through, I near the end of it, I was getting nauseous. I was emotional. Like we were watching about the Olympics or something, and there was a woman who was talking about how she's been able to overcome so much adversity in her life and go on to win the bronze medal. And I was in tears watching this, and my wife was like, are you okay? I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me.
He tried during The Price is Right.
Someone won the big
yeah.
prize. So happy for them.
So your emotions are running high already, and now you take that with these fears of you're losing control, and then there's all of these other things that are building up, and the people that are creepy, and then the big reveal at the end where he has his father's eyes. You're waiting the entire movie for that line, I think. And when that line is delivered, it's like, oh shit, like that the father is not, what's his name? That the father is Satan at that point. And I think like, it is the quintessential slow burn.
That was my number 3.
Nice. Okay.
Very cool one.
That's
We definitely need to.
We touched on it at dinner, but we're like, we can't put it on our list because we're not as versed in it right now. It's been a while since we both watched it, but we definitely agree that was a great example of a slow burner. And
yeah,
cool. I'm glad you guys like that one. I always tell that story about my mom's name being Rosemary and Rosemary's Baby, and she watched that when she was pregnant with me. I'm the spawn of Satan. It's pretty much it. I mean, and my mom got me into horror movies when I was a kid. Like she was into horror, and so she was my catalyst into the world of horror movies. And so I kind of feel like I had no chance. Like I was born into it.
So there's this band called Phantomas, and they have it's Buzz from the Melvins, and Dave Lombardo from Slayer on drums, and someone else also, I don't recall offhand. But anyways, they have this album called The Director's Cut, where they take a bunch of classic movie themes and other things and do them in their own experimental extreme style. And they're what they do with Rosemary's Baby is easily one of the best, if not my favorite song from the album. So,
It's so
they do The
cool.
Godfather too. They do
So
Cape Fear. They do.
Oh,
They do
nice.
a bunch of. So anyways, like we got the box set of their entire discography just because that's the only spot where you can get the director's cut. So please check out Phantomas with an F.
Yeah, with an F.
The director's cut. In particular, Lenny, please check out the Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
So
Thank
cool.
you for the heads up. I need to get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole box set's so cool. It's like
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it still available, or am I gonna get raped on Discogs?
people are
They're not
reselling
too
them
bad.
super cheap because it was way too weird when they actually
Oh
bought it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
No, it's so cool though, and it's got a great aesthetic, great horror aesthetic. It kind
Mhm.
of looks like mahogany sort of like chest.
Like
you're
an
opening.
alchemist's tool.
Oh wow. I'm sold. I'm gonna go online. I'm gonna buy it tonight.
Yeah, someone's got to sell it that was just like, what? This was way too fucking weird for
I
me.
know. I'm
I've heard Grape and Autopsy
Dude, there's no
songs.
such phrase too weird for me.
It's Mike
Mike
Patton.
Mike
yeah.
Patton. Oh, right.
Oh, wow.
Because I've heard of the project. I
Yeah.
just didn't realize what it was.
Yeah, it sounded familiar to me.
Mike
Yeah.
Patton meets Melvins, meets Dave
Well,
Lombardo.
yeah.
You can't get better than
Their
that.
other albums
No.
are all more experimental, but the director's cut is straight up
The
like
director's
So it's
cut-
just the director's cut that has all of these horror riffs on it.
right.
check it out.
I will.
You will not be sad unless
No.
really experimental music that has like abrasive men shouting at you all night is not your thing. But
Where do I sign?
Love it.
All right, give us your next one. We're on what, number 3?
Oh, this is a good one.
so our next one, arguably maybe even yours. Do you want me to do this one? Can I spoil that one?
we were both doing all of them. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Our next is Hitchcock's 1940 classic Rebecca.
Oh, you beast, you.
Conversation. this
Daphne du
time.
Maurier wrote it, and this is one of the earliest, and correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the earliest examples of a twist narrative that
Mhm.
is phenomenally
And
executed.
it creates this thick tension that is just
Just
undeniably
a movie in itself. The tension could
Yeah.
have been a movie in itself.
Yeah, like it, and you get attached to every character, and you feel this sort of impending doom.
Well, and it was a movie, and it was books, and it's like when you look at Henry James, like famous like horror author, did like The Turn of the Screw, or you're looking at some of like the one that I read to you when you're pregnant. The guy had like the Goblin Garden. There was like a series of gothic horror stories where like there was no explicit real ghost that shows up at the end kind of thing. It was just
a
an
kind
awesome,
of an eternal doom.
like an eternal doom, sort of like The
Yeah.
Witch, kind of.
Yeah.
Not really. The Witch does have like a show, but a reveal rather. But
Yeah.
anyways, this Rebecca has this amazing reveal that puts it into this like horror category for us.
And then there's also an ending twist on top of that, like at the very end.
Yeah, it's
I-
kind of like
I'm gonna have to check that out. I've never seen it, but I definitely wanna check it out.
it only won the Oscar for Best Picture. It's not.
Yeah,
that
it's
great.
all.
The book, though, if you like, the
We
book
were
is-
talking about this the last time we met, and this is on my list, so I can't wait.
Oh, it's so good. The premise, and in that case, I won't spoil the reveal for you, Omar. But there is it's about a woman who marries a powerful man who
he has a deceased wife who was very powerful. She was very well known and respected, and wealthy, and she was more
ostensibly.
Yes, and she was, and so the new wife is a little more timid and really intimidated by this woman.
Yeah, and the story is told from the perspective of this timid wife.
And there's
They
also
did a Netflix, right? That was a new one.
Don't do
Not
it.
not good. Not good.
Actually, we haven't.
Wow.
People have told us it's good, but I do not believe them because
Yeah,
they
I was
Okay.
gonna say they remade this, but I probably would wait until I see the original.
See the original. Yeah.
watch the
Yeah.
original, and then do the Netflix if you're like interested. But we have not actually watched the Netflix, but
Yeah.
I would say to start with it because I don't trust it.
Yeah,
Right.
start with the book or Hitchcock. that would be a good start.
Yeah.
But
Cool.
I mean, I tell everybody to, Hitchcock's the way to go. Just in if you want to just learn anything about filmmaking, screenwriting,
Absolutely.
or just learn how to watch a good movie that's going to put you in the
He's the master.
a movie watching mode. You know what I mean? Not just you're just going to go and blindly watch something like, Friday the 13th. You have to watch the subplots and the things that the characters say. They all hold so much weight in these movies. So,
and thank God, because I had that book on a pedestal that you wouldn't believe. Like literally, I was reading this book when you met me. Like when we met each other, I was avoiding her on my lunch break reading the book while she was in the restaurant I was working. I was too nervous to talk to her.
Oh man, that's funny.
That cute guy reading an interesting looking book over there.
And so this book had so much, not just that memory, but just it was one of the best.
It is incredible.
One of the most such a modern expression so early. Such a well written book. Kudos Daphne du Maurier, I think that's who wrote it. But and then Hitchcock. Thank God Hitchcock actually made a great movie too, because like I went in very not expecting to be impressed.
Yeah.
Like nothing could hold a candle to the book, but he actually did a wonderful job interpreting it.
Yeah. Well, if anyone could do it, right? It'd be Hitchcock.
And the last thing I'll say about it is it's got that classic gothic horror style, which is not it's not the same thing as like a slasher flick or anything like that. So don't go in expecting that.
Right.
It's about what you said, the ambiance, the scene, the setting. It's all about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't wait. Yeah, I need to stop sleeping on that and get on it.
Please let us know what you thought.
Yeah,
oh, absolutely. Maybe we do a watch party and record ourselves, and we can.
That would actually be fun.
Yeah, that would be a good time. All right, Omar, give it to us.
All right.
What do you got?
Midsommar.
Oh,
A new. This is actually the last of my new movies, and I wasn't actually really that big of a fan of Hereditary. But I really, really enjoyed Midsommar.
Shame.
I know.
Shame.
Yeah. Sorry.
Just kidding, Omar.
Shame.
We love different opinions.
We're going.
Yeah.
On you right now.
It's that movie snob, obnoxious, thing that I do, but Midsommar, I really, really enjoyed. It was, again, very long, but I never lost interest. Like, I wanted to see what was happening. The scenes made a lot of sense. There was a great progression. And again, it was the story within the story of her relationship with her boyfriend, who was, total asshole, how the whole thing with her family, with her sister and the parents, the suicide murder, exactly. So, and that was never ignored in this movie. It was always kind of front and center, and I think that really, it was the acting, everything about it was done really, really well. Sure. So I really enjoyed that movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think we talked about it last time.
Yeah, we did an episode on it.
Yeah, we did it. One of our early episodes in the podcast. We did a double feature. We did Midsommar and the Wicker Man.
Yeah, the original.
Another great slow burner, by the way.
What?
It is the Wicker Man.
That's true.
Watch Wicker Man?
Yeah.
I haven't. Why did you watch it?
I watched some movies.
He doesn't have to watch everything with you.
You're not
the boss of him.
I've seen it
before.
Anyways,
it's a great one. I like Midsommar. I love the look of the movie. And
I'll give it to you, Omar. That's a perfect example of a slow burner horror movie. So if anything is like, I think that one may have like matched the bill as much as like any of them could.
Absolutely.
And for a modern movie, it's just he really took a chance with it, because nowadays everything's got to be you know, people have a short attention span. We're living in such fast times that for him to sit and, you know, have this movie that's kind of, you know, really takes its time, it was kind of bold of him to do, you know. So definitely kudos for that.
Yeah, not many people today are going to go into a two hour plus movie, and you're really waiting an hour before
Right.
they're jumping off that cliff.
And you know
Right.
what?
Literally.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah, that's literally.
Midsummer to me is the fact that it was long, so I think they did do a good job of creating that tension, that atmosphere. It did not feel like that long of a movie to me. So
Oh, you're right, absolutely right. Like
What
it
I
did
l-
not feel that long, and I thought it would, but it
Yeah.
didn't. They just knew how to do it.
yeah,
It
you're
was done very
invested.
well, very
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
they start off with
Mm.
this bleak melancholy that just pervades the movie. So like when she's got the pipe or the hose taped to her face and she's vomited through the tape and everything else, and the parents are dead.
Yeah.
And I just, the scene, that tableau is terrifying to me. They did such an amazing job right at the beginning of that movie. It sets the tone for everything that happens afterwards.
And prior to the tableau, I'd even argue that one of the most pervasive fear things that news organizations, like, you know, like clickbaits, one of the fear inducing clickbait that news organizations will pick is the last thing that someone said on social media before they did something terrible.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was their last text or their last video or their last this, that is the thing that everyone wants to see. So
Right.
to see that played out on the screen
In the most worst case scenario.
no, well,
Right.
honestly, but
Or
they all feel like worst case scenarios.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, it's
Her email that she read, her sister's email,
Yeah,
you're saying,
yeah,
like that
yeah,
email.
Exactly.
that's the thing that would have been the news story. That would have been like, this was
Yeah.
their last
Absolutely.
email she sent to her
That's
sister.
the thumbnail.
Yeah, and
exactly.
to me, it was just like, oh, this is what it feels like. This is what it looks like when it's
Yes.
actually happening
And
to
then
you.
it's so ugly and bleak.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
the actress, I forget her name offhand, and I'm sorry that I don't have it, but she was amazing
Yeah.
in this role. Like I believed every
Yeah.
second of this movie because of her.
I was
Yeah,
like,
she
don't do
did-
shrooms, man. You are going through trauma.
Yeah, she did a
Don't
good
do
job.
shrooms.
Yeah.
Or I forget what
No.
they were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were definitely doing psilocybin. There was something going on there, and you're
know.
like,
I'm sure the horror movie community has talked to us a lot, but the one scene, I guess you could call it the one scene that was like
Encapsulated it, maybe.
or you just knew it was coming. You just knew it was coming. It was just a little much. How do you feel about it? Because I don't even know how I feel about that.
Now you're talking about the cliff jump, or
Oh no, that one I was cool with. I'm talking about the group thing with the ladies.
When things got like deeply.
When you knew it was coming.
Okay, so when they need to proliferate in order for the
There you
in
go.
order to have new genes put
yeah,
into
they,
the community.
Yeah.
So you had trouble with the tension that put on their relationship? Like, is that what you're
The
saying?
whole thing is like you knew it was coming. You knew it was going to be something fucked up
Yeah.
sexually with these women, and then it happens, and you're like, "Oh, sweet Jesus, it's worse."
So here's the take from a man's point of view. If you're ever in a position where you're single or whatever you're dealing with, and you go to a strange place, and you are like these guys put themselves in a situation where like they're hoping to meet up with these strange Swedish women, and oh, you want me for sex? You want me for my seed? Like
Yeah.
how fucking ego driven they are. They're appealing to his sense of manliness.
Right.
And most men are going to succumb to this, right? They put themselves into a position of,
He's
oh
on
my,
so many drugs.
I'm virile. But
the thinking doesn't come from here.
right, they're thinking with the wrong head, and that's terrifying too, because you're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. You're not thinking clearly because you're fucked up on mind altering drugs. They're giving them whatever it is they're drinking is obviously, reducing their inhibitions and getting them to do the things that they want them to do. Otherwise,
and that the sun isn't setting, because it's so far up north. It's messing with their, biological, regular biology.
Yeah.
And that was another thing that I actually really liked is nothing happens in the dark. It's broad daylight, and these horrific things are happening. So
very intentionally done. I think. And he's well researched in terms of like the kinds like obviously he puts a little bit of a spin, a twist on it and makes it his own kind of version of it, but there's the things that he's talking about are not uncommon to cults and to a lot of
like the greenhouse scene. That's very old ancient.
There's a lot of different practices that pretty much everything there is referencing something as which it could be, you could also consider that a criticism, but I think that it's I think it's pretty good. Cool, and it kind of grounds it in history, which is probably why you like it, Omar.
Yeah. I am.
Yeah,
definitely.
The set pieces for me in a horror movie are just as important. In fact, sometimes I would argue, depending upon the type of movie, it's more important than plot. And I know, Omar, I'm going to raise some, your ire here, because whenever we write, we rewrite and tweak dialogue and tweak plot, and it's super important. But the set piece in a horror movie makes or breaks the conceit that you're going for. And they had, the end of this film where you see people volunteering to be immolated, and they have him, they inside an actual bear suit. So there was a bear, and they gutted the bear and then put him inside this animal suit and burned him in an effigy. All of these things, the what do you call it, the blood eagle that they did, where they pulled out the organs and the lungs from behind, and he was still alive. All of these things, they just added to this sense of you're part of us now. We're going to take you and your humanity, your energy, and we're going to empower our people with your energy. And they took their humanity from them and then killed them. That ending is terrifying, and people don't give it enough credit. I think they've really built up that tension over the whole thing. We know that they're gonna die.
Yeah.
I just think we didn't like it because it was too scary.
Maybe that was it.
Oh.
Like it was just
I don't know what that means. Too scary?
Too disturbed.
It was disturbing.
It was disturbing,
It's like, I'm not suggesting it's bad by any means. It's very much a subjective interpretation of the film.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic. And one thing I'll say too is that the soundtrack is really, really good. It's very sought after. There's one pressing that everyone wants, the May Queen.
I know.
Variant.
Yeah.
I'm so fucking annoyed that I didn't pick it up when I should have.
Yeah, I feel you.
Pissed off.
Yeah.
So they'll repress that. So wait till
I know. I'm still waiting for the repress because I don't want to spend the crazy money online.
Yeah.
So
we don't have that one.
No, we don't.
I'm next.
You're next.
Yeah. Hereditary.
All right.
Ari Aster Power Hour.
Yeah, it's the Power Hour. This is another slow burn. This is just black vinyl. There's nothing exciting here.
Other than the music on it.
Other than the fantastic music.
Colin Stetson.
So I saw this movie. I had no idea what I was going in to see. I just heard it was good. And lately, in the last few years, I just know just enough about a movie to know whether or not I want to see it in a theater. And that's really how I like it. I don't want to get into spoilers. Sometimes I don't even watch a full trailer. Like I'll just start watching a movie and just say, this looks like something I'm into. But the second I started watching this movie, I saw it in a theater as I want to, because I love going to the movies and I miss that so much right now. So going to see this movie, I loved every single thing about Hereditary. I love this movie. I love the acting. I love the sense of despair. Toni Collette, when her daughter is decapitated in this movie, the sense of loss is palpable. Like I was in tears watching her crying because it was the most powerful acting I think I've seen in a long, long time. She was amazing.
Can I make 2 comments on that? I'm so sorry to cut into your
No,
thing.
you're fine. Go ahead.
I'll say the first thing I'll say about that scene is there's this sense that movie captures that no other horror movie that I could think of it really does. It's like when the circus leaves town, when he drives home, that's the scene that's not in the other horror movies really, like and like,
and he's high and paranoid.
and it's like, wait, he's just driving home, he's just leaving. This is the worst thing that could, like,
right?
It's not drama, it's not like shock. It is, but it's hard to describe, but it's a sense of it's a sense of the real lingering terror that happens when tragedy doesn't cut to the next scene. That is one of the hardest things to face in any movie I've ever had to deal with.
Yep.
And then the second thing I'll say is, it was really fun when I sent it to my mom to watch.
Oh my God.
Oh man.
So please continue though.
No, yeah. I mean, I'm at that same point. If I and obviously we have a podcast because we like doing this. If I see a movie that I love, I immediately go for, you have to see this. Like I'll do it with Omar, and I'm like, Omar, we should maybe review this. Watch this movie. Tell me what you think, or I'll tell other people about it. So this is kind of what sprang into this, because if you see a movie, you're like, oh, you have to see this, like Rebecca, or what's the movie that we saw recently that we just reviewed, Peeping Tom, which is another great movie from the 1960. It was released like a couple of months before Psycho. And a lot of people attribute this to being the kind of the progenitor of the modern slasher film.
Mike Patton has a band called Peeping Tom, by the way. Speaking
of yeah, okay.
It's probably, and it's got that it has like an Italian horror style. I don't know if it's Italian. Anyways.
No, it was a British horror movie, but it has an aesthetic of a foreign film aesthetic, but it's excellent. It's one I would definitely recommend to you guys. But anyway, this movie has you right from the beginning with the sense of despair. All of the family members are in this house together. They don't communicate well, and that's part of the problem. You kind of develop a sense of this woman is living in this meticulous lifestyle that she's creating, right? She creates this microcosm of livability where it's a perfect snapshot of how a person should be living, right? But that's not real. That's not the real world. And her real world is slowly crumbling. Relationships with her son, the relationship with her husband, the non-existent relationship with her mother, all of these put you in the mindset of when shit is starting to crumble, when she sees her dead daughter and then her son starts to go through these changes himself. It was just one slow descent into this madness. And then when she's near the end and they're in the living room and she throws the book into the fire or whatever, and then her husband goes up in flames, you're like, holy shit, like you were not expecting. I think at that point, just after that scene where you're in the living room and you see her crawling on the ceiling, it gives me chills up and down my spine. That scene where you see her crawling on the ceiling and you're like, oh shit, this goes beyond what I was expecting, like, there's something supernatural that's going to occur. It's building up to it. But when that really happens and then the ritual begins in the attic, God damn it. It's perfectly chilling.
I'm so excited.
I will.
It's so chilling. It's such a great film. I like this movie more than I like Midsommar. I just
I think it's fair to love the. I don't want to just be like the mediator. I think that they both are excellent movies, and I bet you it really comes down to your
personal preferences
based off of your experiences.
Yeah.
I fall on the side of Hereditary too. I think that one in particular has just this insanity built into it. And the thing that was so cool is like it has that family, like you said, like the falling apart of the family. And then like there's the scene where she's in like the parking lot, there's the mall, and like stereotypical old friend that you haven't seen in a few years shows up and like tells you like some like completely whacked out shit. Like to like usually it's to join a pyramid scheme or to do something like that. But in this case, it has like the supernatural element.
This is the ultimate pyramid scheme. It's like, hey, get on the ground level, powers and riches in the afterlife.
Well, I wish
it was worship payment.
To be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
So that as soon as that scene happens, I was just like, oh shit, act 2, get the
and you know the actress who plays that old lady, the friend of her mother, like you don't know that she was in the cult, right? But that lady is from what is she? She plays in Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, really?
And she plays one of the I forget what she's like a matron or like she trains the handmaids. And you just fucking hate her so much. Like I just love hating that lady, you know. It's the best. But that's how good she is. So when I saw that she was in this role, I was like, oh man, this is going to be so juicy. And then it is, you know, like at the end, by the end of this movie, you're just completely enamored with what's going to happen. And anytime you bring in like demonology or Satanism into it, that's a big deal. I mean, exactly. It's like perfect. All right. There's more like ritualistic or you know, evil setting. You can't get anything more evil than, you know, bringing about a physical manifestation of an evil being, right? This demon payment. And now that I'm thinking about it, so Hereditary, Rosemary's Baby, The Witch, The Exorcist. We got a trend here, right? I mean, some of the greatest evils that we got are.
We were going to preface the whole thing with The Exorcist. Classic examples.
It sort of set. I don't want to say it set the standard, but.
I really do think it did. And, you know, and speaking of, I know we're going to go back to it, but just to back away from Hereditary real fast, The Exorcist, if you guys get a chance on Shudder, they did an interview with William Friedkin, who obviously is the director of The Exorcist. And he spends an hour and 50 minutes talking about directing The Exorcist and how, you know, he got into it, how he was given the script and he was friends with William Peter Blatty and how they got together to do the film. And
all credit to Blatty. Anything that's I'm sorry. I think that he did the director did such an amazing job bringing that to life, but there was nothing really scary in that movie that did not show up in that book too. Like
we read that whole book out loud.
One of the best.
It is amazing. The best book. It's a scary book. It's so well written. It's tight. And they did a great job of bringing that book to life. I think it's not quite a shot for shot, but he did a great job bringing it to life. It really sticks to the spiritual need of where that book was coming from. I think they talk about the loss of faith. And even just he talks about, you know, Father Karras, how the whole movie, that demon was there to really to put Father Karras at that point, because he's the only one that has this crisis of faith.
Right.
And so it was such an interesting take on the whole thing, because, you know, Karras is the one, even at the end, commits suicide, says, "Come into me, take me." And then for a moment there, you see Karras's face, and then he throws himself out the window. So he makes that conscious decision to commit suicide. So he's willing to throw away his immortal soul to save this young girl. And if that's not an act of selflessness, then what is? And so it's a conundrum, because he's willing to throw away, you know, if you're religious, then he's willing to throw away, you know, salvation, the divine grace of God, because he's going to commit suicide to save this young girl. But at the end, after he throws himself down those stairs, that priest is there and gives him absolution. So I like to think that Father Karras, maybe he really does, he gets the sins washed away, and Father Karras lives on. But it was a very powerful film. When I was a kid, I saw it, I was like, oh, this isn't scary, you know what I mean? But as you watch it later on, and you go into this thinking of, I'm not a religious person. I don't subscribe to any religion. I'm more of like an atheist. So, but that's just my personal thing. I mean, I just feel like if I don't know, I'm not willing to say that I do. You know what I mean? And so that's where I come from. If I just need a logical sense of what seems real for me. But you put
I saw
yourself.
I saw that movie at 13.
Yeah.
And it scared the living hell out. I had trouble going to sleep because of The Exorcist,
Yeah.
man. For like a week, I was like, "Oh my god!" It scared the living hell out of me, and that's why it's one of my top two, man.
It's a damn good
it's
movie.
actually, I have it up there with the. It's I have two number ones, and The Exorcist is one of them.
Yeah.
That movie scared the hell out of me, man.
Yep.
Yeah. No, nothing has quite scared me like The Exorcist. I don't think it was up there. I remember it from childhood being exactly. I might have been even been a little younger, and I remember expressing to my dad probably around 10 or 11 that I love horror movies. All right, The Exorcist.
What's that?
I did not sleep alone, I think, for a year at least. Like I was just searching demon possession every night.
Yeah.
And
That's awesome.
I love the opening, like something that I'm working on now. It deals with like ancient Mesopotamian Babylonian mythology, and the opening scene of the Pazuzu demon, just standing there, this ancient thing. It's funny, historically it's actually a protector demon. It's supposed to fight against another demon called the Lamashtu, but it just looked so, because it was so ancient, so alien, and you had to see it, and you had these dogs fighting it was in Iraq, and they're fighting against each other. That something evil has been unleashed, and it's ancient, and that just really, I just really loved that visual. It was so awesome.
Yeah.
You got to admit that's maybe it's because they weren't aware of how easy it is to screw that up, that the tension in that scene. So they just did it authentically well. But I've seen that done countless awful times where it's like, this thing is evil.
Right. And they did it in such a subtle way, such a smart way, where you're still not sure what's going on, but you see the effect of the evil, how you have these wild dogs fighting each other. It didn't have to be explained, it wasn't presented on a silver platter. You figured it out just visually, and that was just awesome.
Yeah.
And then it culminates, of course, in this scene, right, with Reagan, and then you see the
yes.
That's sort of like, in case you missed it, super cool.
Yeah.
Honestly, we got this soundtrack. That wasn't like, man, we need this music. It was like you got this one for me, didn't you?
Yeah.
Tubular bells.
Yeah,
Tubular bells. It's like instantly it's the sound. It's the Exorcist. The two are
inextricably linked.
Yeah. But everything else on here is very like atonal, experimental, creepy.
He talks about that too, because he interviewed Bernard Herrmann. He was going to get Bernard Herrmann to do this, and he got other people, names that he dropped, and Friedkin was just like, Bernard Herrmann told me he wanted to do X, Y, and Z. And he was like, what the fuck? He's like, all right, well, it was a pleasure meeting a very interesting person. Thanks for, meeting with me. And he left, and he's like, what the fuck is this? Bernard Herrmann? Is he kidding me? Like, he was off put, because of the suggestions that Bernard Herrmann was making towards the soundtrack. It was anathema to the thought process of where Friedkin was at the making of this. And it's an interesting take how he went with, he heard Tubular Bells and he was just listening to other cues, music cues as temp tracks, that eventually he said, fuck it, we're just going to do it this way. And he put the soundtrack together in the way that they did, because he had heard Tubular Bells and he was like, I don't need to have something created for this soundtrack. This is what I need. Is like he knew it as soon as he heard it.
That's super
That's
cool,
awesome.
and that is the case with some other fantastic movies too, like some similar stories.
It's like they just come together like the perfect storm. It's like they had Stacy Keach was going to play the Father Karras role, and the actor who was wanted to play Father Karras was like, Friedkin, I need to come in here. He's like, I've already cast this role. He's like, okay, that's great. He's like, but you don't understand. This is me. I'm this guy. He's like, I need to do this. He's like, look, I have the role cast already. What don't you understand? I'll tell you what, if you pay for the airfare and you come in here, we'll do a scene and I'll record it for you. So this way you have something to look at in 10 years. You can check out the scene. He's like, but I've already cast this part. He's like, it's already going to someone else. The guy came in and crushed the role of Father Karras to the point where he called up the studio and said, hey, listen, Stacy Keach is out. I got another guy. And they gave the role to him because he embodied the role of Father Karras, which I just love stories like that,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Yeah. It's just like the perfect storm comes together and they just made, they made a movie that was deserving of an Academy Award. I mean, it really was incredible.
Oh yeah,
amazing. And based off of what we're saying, like it's the one of the greatest examples of this what we're talking about today.
It truly is, because I was thinking of other like sort of exorcism movies, like The Exorcism of Emily Rose. I thought had a really nice slow burning tension, but I'm like, let's just bring it all back to The Exorcist, because I think they just stole the same sort of template.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I thought the same thing too, because you think about these types of movies and like we said earlier, the slow burn has to embody the fact that it's developing something. It's not a slow burn because they were fuddling around with the plot. It's a slow burn because they're building something. This is a creation that it's going to be greater than the sum of its parts, so by the time it comes to a head, you're 100% bought into whatever is about to happen to these protagonists, whatever has been laid, the groundwork that's been laid before. You can't escape it. It's in your DNA at this point. And that's what I mean. Like an hour and change goes by and you're seeing her getting CAT scans and everything else. And it's like, what the fuck is going on in this movie? It's like a science procedural. And then, it's
something bad.
Yeah. And then when that one doctor's like, so are you a religious person? What do you think of exorcism? And it's like the doctor, these scientists, all of the science that comes together, and the doctor says, so it's kind of just this glib, offhanded, and then suddenly, it's like an hour and change into this movie, and just from that one simple line. So what do you think about, have you heard of exorcisms? It's like, holy shit, now it's about to hit the fan. So it's perfect.
That's definitely worth the wait.
Yep. So what's your next one? I mean, we could sit here forever. Talk to me. What's your next one? I think we're at number 4 or 5.
Okay, well then our last one's Hereditary, and the one thing I will say about it that we didn't say, we said a lot, but we didn't say just how phenomenal the soundtrack to Hereditary is.
Yes.
And it's the thing that if I had to Omar, if I had to pin it up against Midsommar as a music lover, it's the reason why it wins out. I just think Colin Stetson brought to this film a soundtrack that is one of the, I'll say it, it's one of the best horror soundtracks of all time in terms of its innovation, creativity, original. He plays a baritone saxophone primarily, and he can create these ridiculous soundscapes,
like capturing sort of anxieties that no other can.
Absolutely.
full-bodied instrument that within it there's a depth of emotion. So even within that anxiety, you will hear fear, you will hear love, you will hear torment. It's such a cool new instrument, and I know it's not like new per se, like I know that's been used in lots of horror films, but the way it's used in this one to capture that is so phenomenal. I think Colin Stetson's an amazing musician, and I just think that this one was so perfect and it was so well done, and I'm so glad they chose him to do it.
Absolutely.
One a non-horror soundtrack. I don't know if you ever, if any of you guys ever heard the Last Temptation of Christ soundtrack.
No,
I haven't listened to it. No.
If you ever get the chance, it is outstanding. It actually, they do use a certain world music, but they add a lot of synthesized sounds. It's Peter Gabriel. I strongly recommend it. It's not horror, but it does have certain darkness to it. It's an outstanding soundtrack that actually influenced. I forgot which member of Tool. Like it had a real strong influence on his development as a musician. But yeah, it's a great soundtrack. That's one I can listen to over and over and over again. Really, really good. Yeah, if you ever get the chance.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Sure.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that soundtrack. It's one that I play. I'm just hanging out if I'm reading or just want something ambient in the background that I want that I put on. I go to that frequently because it is, it's engaging and it's creepy, and there's an unsettled, like a manic feeling to it at times too. And I think that's just because it's trying to play with the emotions of the main character.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I don't know. That's the vibe I get off of it, because she's so scattered. She is just.
But in her own way, she's also coming from like a place of love, but also hate, and it's so complex. That's why it's a perfect instrument.
Yeah.
We talk about music that replicates a monster. This is an example of that. And if you ever see Colin Stetson playing the baritone saxophone, that instrument,
it's wild.
That instrument's a workout. Just to I'd recommend seeing some live footage of him, because you need to pour yourself into that instrument to even produce the sound. So when you hear that, like that organic real sound, it's real.
Yeah. So I always loved that sound, and that's the thing. Horror soundtracks are more so, I think, than any other genre, really play on the emotions of the listener and the viewer. And so whenever a lot of these movies are just completely connected to the music, to the point where I need to have the soundtrack, or I want to have it just so to put myself into that emotion. So George Romero's Day of the Dead, it's not really necessarily one of his greatest movies. And then when people talk about it, obviously Night of the Living Dead, they talk about Dawn of the Dead. The Dawn of the Dead soundtrack sucks to some aspects of it, because he uses a library of sounds. So it's not just composed, some of it is just an open library of music that he used because it was in the mall. But when I hear those cues, or like the gonk song, I'm immediately in the mall fighting zombies. And so, I have this emotional connection. It's like if I listen to the Day of the Dead soundtrack, and I listen to it a lot, there's a lot of subtle and ambience to it because they're in those caves. Like you hear the moaning and stuff like that. I always just I love the fact that a song, even if it's a 35-second music cue, it could immediately put me into a sense of dread.
Yeah.
And I just love being scared. Even when I was a kid, it terrified me. But but the thought process, like you had earlier, like, oh shit, I wasn't expecting this. This creeped me out. I had to stop watching it. I long for that sense of fear.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like I want a movie to scare me. I go into it hoping that I'm going to get that moment of fear again. even if it's like one split second. But I think a good movie will give you that, and it stays with you long after it's gone. I don't know about you guys, but I think
Yeah,
a lot
Absolutely, man.
If anyone in a record label's listening, that what you can get from that is don't if you're gonna press a soundtrack, please put in any auditory scary motifs. Please try your best to include that too, because it's a shame when they're missing, and there's like such important auditory moments.
That's fair.
And either at the start of it when a song starts, or at the end, or it's a bit disappointing. It's like you know what I'm saying, Lenny?
Yeah.
Like,
there's little cues in the movie, and I like hearing that in the soundtracks.
And it's a shame when that's not part of whatever like the master of the track was that was used for the soundtrack, and that was like post or whatever. But I hate it when it's not included because it's like so integral.
Totally.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more.
That scene or that part that scary. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Omar, talk to us. You might as well just go give us your next two that you got. Just lay it on us, Omar.
All right. So, for my number 4, I had number 4. All right, let's say number 2. I had because my numbers are all over the place, man.
Is it number 4? Is it number 2?
My whole life is all over the place. But I have the oldest one actually that is on my list is The Haunting from 1963.
Oh, wow.
That's a Robert Wise film. Excellent. They redid it on that as that show. Actually, they did it in a movie in the 90s that was awful. And then they had the remake for Netflix, The Haunting on
yes.
Like The Haunting of Hill House?
Yes. Actually, yeah, I'm sorry. It is The Haunting of Hill House. Yeah, so that was I mixed it up with The Haunting, but
no, but The Haunting was the one in the 90s. That was that one was called The Haunting, I think.
Was Liam Neeson in The Haunting?
Liam Neeson was in The Haunting of Hill House, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mixed up the two movies now.
Come on, Omar.
Yeah, no.
We watched
terrible. But
Haunting,
both the 90s versions of The Haunting and The Haunting of Hill House were awful. But the original,
I agree.
The original, the Robert Wise one was excellent.
Okay, so the Haunting in 1999, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Owen Wilson.
That's like her favorite horror.
It's the Shirley Jackson one. You don't even know. I have been trying. I didn't even know this existed. I read the book and I love the book, and I have not seen a good movie, so I'm probably just gonna go watch that now. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, it was excellent. It was really, really good. That was a Robert Wise movie, who's actually an excellent director.
Yeah.
Good book.
The one, I mean, I think there's one scene that everyone kind of, anyone who's seen the movie remembers of. Well, I don't want to give it away since you haven't seen it, but it's just done really well.
Probably gonna go watch after this.
Yeah, no spoilers.
Yeah, it's great. No spoilers. It's really good. I strongly recommend it. But yeah, so that's my. My number numbers
2?
are all over because of the one fact that some of you guys already named some of them, like the Exorcist I had up there.
Yeah,
and then the other one that I have up there is The Shining. Those are my 2 top favorite horror movies of all time.
Okay.
Shining. Doing The Shining. Fair. That's an awesome one.
Yeah. Super slow at the beginning, but it's just outstanding.
Oh yeah.
It was almost but the slowness was Stephen King's not exactly at his best. He's not the fastest in terms of like.
Well, he didn't like it. He didn't like that version. Yeah.
He and Kubrick knew it.
And
Kubrick was such a little jerk. He had the scene because in the book, I don't know if I might get this not exactly 100% right, but in the book, the family driving up to the house are driving like a red car or something.
Right.
The family's driving up, and in Kubrick's film, as the family's coming up, they're actually driving a blue car, and they see a red car overturned on the side of the road.
Yeah.
So
that was Kubrick. Yeah, it was a dig to Stephen King.
Stephen King, this is my movie now, bitch.
Yeah. Did you see the documentary Room 237?
No.
I heard about it, but I heard some of this stuff is like, you know, the claims
You have
are
to
like
watch it. It's very
ridiculous.
interesting, and they talk about
Right.
conspiracies
Yeah.
with this film because there's a
Oh, am I
conspiracy.
not talking the truth right now? That was just what I heard.
No. You're fine. That's actually legitimate. But they were talking about conspiracies of, what
The moon
Kubrick was
landing.
doing, and all of the different elements that went into the making of this movie, and some of the subtext, about like Indian burial grounds and all this other stuff. It was a very interesting. Some of it you have to take with a grain of salt, like
The moon
the
landing.
moon landing was fixed, and Kubrick did 2001 the way he did it because he was trying to do a test to see what the moon landing would look like if he could fake a moon landing, because he was the greatest cinematographer and director of his day, and he
Right.
was right smack dab in the middle of his his powers in the late 60s, so it was like perfect. But they show you like Danny's wearing an Apollo 11 rocket
Right.
on his sweater, and the
Oh.
camera rises as Danny stands up. It looks like the rocket is taking off. There's all kinds of weird twists in this movie. And this whole movie is like a 2-hour documentary about the subtext of The Shining.
Cool.
So it's
That's
pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
that's one of those movies that you could probably have multiple 2-hour documentaries on the subtext of it.
Oh my God,
Oh,
yeah, absolutely. But
And-
that's a great movie, Omar.
It is. It's definitely like I said, one of the scariest for me. You know, I mean, that was a movie that really scared the hell out of me as a kid. You know, just done so well.
I remember my Nana was very open. She introduced me to legend first, so she kind of got me
Oh,
introduced to that sort of world,
great
and then
movie.
right into The Shining.
Yeah, there was no line. It was just like, we're gonna watch Legend. Now you're gonna watch The Shining.
We're good with this. Shining.
Oh, that's awesome.
She's awesome.
I saw a really cool, it was on one of those like horror behind the scenes Instagram pages, but there's one of like Jack Nicholson working himself up for
Yes,
Oh, yeah, I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't even see
and he's like
that.
getting
Oh yeah.
into crazy mode.
I wanna
It's
see
so
that.
Oh, you see him? He's like
Yeah.
like he's trying to
Yeah.
get himself all worked up. He's got the axe and everything. I was like, oh my God. I mean, like,
awesome.
Oh,
And then they say that Shelley Duvall really lost her mind, and it had something to do with because
Yes.
Kubrick was a genius, but he was also a bastard. And he specifically told the crew not to talk to her, not to try to get to draw an emotion from her. And it had like, if you see her now, she's like, she looks like a mess.
yeah, like
She's-
after that movie, and they were
yeah.
even talking about when they were filming that he would make her do the scene over and over, like
Yeah.
60 takes to get her
Yeah.
into this mindset of like just being frazzled.
But he also did it
Yeah.
with Tom Cruise with Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah, he did.
Kubrick. He was a
Kubrick was a real
bastard.
fucking piece of
He
shit
is
when
a
it
real
came to
piece
that.
of
Like,
sh-
he really was a
genius, but he was a
degenerate.
piece of
He was
shit.
terrible, but he was amazing. I mean,
Yeah,
just the guy was
yeah.
incredible. I'll probably talk about this. This is probably one of my favorite experiences, but we watched, and I don't know why I'm going to say this, but we did shrooms one night, and we watched A Clockwork Orange,
Oh dear.
but
Yeah.
we turned the soundtrack off and we listened to Merciful Fate.
Oh, no.
We played Merciful Fate all, to the entire movie. So the movie had no volume except for the Merciful Fate music, and we just had random Merciful Fate music playing over, and we just watched the movie with the music.
Wow.
It was crazy, weird, and intense. And we were everyone was drinking beer, and we were eating mushrooms.
Shrooms.
That's
Wow.
amazing. I'm pretty
It was
sure
incredible. And
that's
so the
amazing.
next thing, like, we're always like Friday night freakouts, as my buddy Kevin says it. It's Friday night freakouts. We got to get together. So like the next thing we is like, we got to figure out what the next mashup is going to be. So it's got to be something really friggin' weird and twisted. So that's what we're trying to figure out next. But Kubrick had a big role in playing to our, the weirdness going on at that time.
Well, I'll say one
That's
thing
so
more
cool.
than about this is weirdly uncanny. This is the artist Aesop Rock, and this is a hip hop
I'm
artist.
very interested.
Really
in your
good. He's got a
correlation.
he's known to like I'm so excited. He's
Okay.
he's got a vocabulary that's like renowned to be more extensive than Shakespeare by
I love this
the
album.
amount of words that he chooses to use in his. And it's very very dense, very cool, very poetic. But there's
Very dorky hip hop.
well,
Really?
call it dorky.
But good
Call
dorky.
it dorky, I guess.
Good
Well, he
dorky.
literally
Yeah,
has-
no, he is kind of a, like a hip hop nerd kind of guy, but in a really good way. Yeah.
Well, I think he's cool. And then this one in particular, there's a whole full stream of this album over like a revisualization of Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
Oh shit!
Oh,
Like,
okay.
like one time I was not sober for it wasn't mushrooms, but it was I smoked some
Grass.
It was some grass.
We're
And,
Canadian.
yeah, and
I love
We call it
Canadians.
grass.
I know, I love that.
But at the time it wasn't. But I was I
True.
listened to this and
You weren't Canadian?
I was no, I know the pot wasn't the pot was illegal. I was a badass. And
Oh, all right, gotcha.
so anyways, I listened to this this video and I watched this video and the combination of like this revisualization of the film with the music, and I just got locked in. It was awesome. So I'd also recommend Aesop Rock and looking at that Shining, their interpretation of The Shining. It's a great time.
Oh, all right, awesome. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Nominating Lenny to be babysitter if Dylan and I ever do mushrooms.
You got it. Because I can take care of kids and I can decide to not be high. So I'm good.
I've only microdosed.
Probably have but Omar's got to be there to have the presence of mind to be like, have you had suffered any traumatic experiences?
So
lately?
listen, here's the deal. When COVID ends, we're getting on a plane and we're gonna come out to you guys. We're gonna go out for dinner and drinks and hang out and have a great time.
Yes, definitely. That would be awesome.
So, people are like, yeah, shut up, get to the next movie. All right, so I'm gonna bring this out.
All right.
And
Bring it.
it's so innocuous, it's tough to see. Any idea what this is?
I can't tell.
It's tough, right? So this comes in a sleeve.
Ooh.
This is like a body bag, right? This is the Autopsy of Jane Doe. Have you ever seen this movie?
Yeah.
You've seen it, Omar's seen it.
Yeah, I have.
So the autopsy, this is actually the record, and you do the autopsy, and the record's
awesome.
in here.
That's really awesome. That is crazy. Oh my god.
So it kind of just gives you an idea. It's like a triple gatefold. It's only a single album, but it's triple gatefold because. And then what's cool is when you open this up, it's like a pinkish looking record.
Oh my gosh.
And it's the label is like this heart.
Oh, the label.
Ah.
And so it kind of looks like you're opening up the body. Anyway, so I'll talk about this movie. Brian Cox is probably one of my favorite actors who doesn't get enough love. He anything he does, I'm just all in on him, on his role, because he's just so interesting. So he plays that they're, I guess, a funeral director. They're doing this autopsy or whatever, and then they're gonna, do the embalming and everything else. And it's a slow reveal through time across this movie, and maybe an hour and 40 minutes or whatever the heck it is. But she's also at the end. Did you guys see this movie?
They didn't.
Okay, so I'm not going to say what this is then. I'm not going to spoil anything. This is a very slow burn of a movie. It is a very creepy movie, atmospheric as hell. It's got a real sense of dread about it. It takes place basically in one room throughout the entire film, and that's in this funeral home. And there's a tension between the father and the son. He doesn't want to take over the family business, but he feels the sense of obligation. The father wants him to take over the business and feels like his son isn't really taking it seriously. So there's this subtext going on between the father and son as they're working together. And then they're slowly revealed who this woman is over time. But these strange odd things that take place, bumps in the night in the darkened rooms. It was they played it really well. It's not perfect. The ending of this film, I felt a little bit of I don't know, like I felt like I want
Slacking.
yeah, I felt like they almost dropped the ball. They didn't, but it was almost like it was maybe on a scale on an out of 5, I would give it a 4.5. You know what I mean? It's like it wasn't that bad, but I really enjoyed the movie, and they did everything right in terms of the atmosphere and the creepiness and the setting. Remember, I told you earlier, the setting is everything. Well, they did this setting right, and the um Jane Doe, um I like the conceit of this film, how it's developed over time. It definitely lends itself to the subject matter at hand, being a slow burn. Um, I don't want to. I'm trying not to give anything away because I
know.
want you guys to see this. So check it out, see it, and then let me know what you think.
Fairly new movie. Didn't it come out
Yeah,
like
it
a
came
year or
out
two
maybe 3
ago?
years
Yeah,
ago or
3
something like
years.
that. 2
Okay,
years ago.
yeah,
So fairly new film. But Brian
yeah.
Cox is in it. He plays the dad. And like I said, there's nothing that whenever he's in a movie, I always like to see it. He even, I think he was Agamemnon in Troy,
Yes, and
which is
Troy.
another
Right,
movie that
right.
people are like, oh, they love to hate on it. But Troy was a fun movie that I enjoyed. I think it was good. But Brian Cox is in it. He plays Agamemnon, and he's just awesome. The guy's got a great voice, tons
He
of
does.
gravitas. I'm like,
Yeah,
whatever he's
absolutely.
doing, he's dragging you along with him. Like you can't not be intrigued. He's just got that kind of personality.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I feel that. Well, wow. This if this doesn't give your viewers a multitude of new things to check out, I don't know what will. This I took
I
from
have a multitude
like
of
us
things
alone,
to
like
check out.
Yeah.
we've a handful of new movies, and I was just I feel so privileged. I feel so privileged to have been part of this discussion. I
Me
just feel like this
too.
was so exciting,
Same
and this was
here.
very new for us.
Yeah, never ever done anything like this before. So this is really fun. Just for a little hobby that we've developed over the years. It's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks.
Thank you so
No,
much.
I'm glad you guys
Thanks
made
for
this
coming.
because
Yeah.
yeah, Omar and I have been talking about this for a long time. We started a podcast years ago and we never really did anything. We recorded a couple of episodes and we kind of bemoaned the fact that we didn't do anything with it, And then every time you guys would do a live video, I'm like, "Oh man, we should get back into doing the podcast." And then over the summer, Omar and I started doing that and I was like, "We have to really think about getting interesting people because I have diarrhea of the mouth when it comes to talking about stuff that I love. People are like, just shut up already. You're talking over Omar. Let him get some time in. So that type of thing. I'm like, I try. And Anita, my girlfriend, the last interview you and I did, she was like, when you went to go get that American Werewolf in London video, you came back. She said Dylan was talking, and you just came back and you just started talking about the movie, and you completely cut him off.
Stood up for me.
Yeah.
Lenny, I'm just kidding. It did not at all. I feel like I talk.
No, man, not at all.
It's a byproduct of being passionate.
Absolutely.
I think so too. And I was like, oh man, I didn't even realize it because when I came back, I was just like, you have to get this, Arrow Home Video, release this. And so she was like, yeah, but you just completely blew him off. Like he was in the middle of talking. And I was like, oh shit, I didn't see that. So I have the tendency to be very verbose and all this other stuff. So I'm like, this kind of lends itself to these types of discussions because we are passionate about not just movies and music and not just soundtracks, but there's so much you guys offer, like your perspective on the things that you have when you share your home or share that you're doing stuff with your son King and everything, so these little things that you guys do really engenders people to your page. It's kind of like why I wanted to be friends with you guys because you have similar interests and you just seem like just genuine people who are really cool. And I guess my hunch was correct because you guys are great and willing to do this type of stuff. It's really cool, so we appreciate the hell out of you guys coming on.
We're more than
It was
willing.
fun.
Thank you very much. And more than willing, it's more of a, you have to realize that we talk horror stuff a lot, but it's in such a vacuum of just our own personal experiences.
It's just us
so
bouncing
so
ideas
a
off
lot of
each
things that
other.
we're saying to you guys, we're saying it without having like much more experienced horror movie watchers. Like you could probably just be like, what the, where are these guys coming from? It's because no one's like necessarily criticized us beyond our very personalized subjective opinions.
Yeah.
So you're getting the straight goods from someone who, I guess we're not trying to be competitive. We're just telling you,
we're just being very
based
honest.
off of people that indulge in it quite often. This is where we stand. It's, so I
no, that's perfect. I mean, that's why I love doing what we did. We did the 2 interviews on Instagram, IGTV, and it was so much fun. And then, like I said, when we started the podcast back in July, Omar and I were like, well, what are we going to do to keep it interesting too? Like, people aren't going to just want to listen to me spout off what I think about the thing 500 times. You know what I mean? Like but this is the kind of stuff we were really looking forward to, engaging with people who, can articulate and can, talk about why they like something. It's, you could say, oh yeah, that movie was awesome. But why does this movie hold something personal for you? Why is legend so important? Besides the fact that Tim Curry is freaking awesome, but when you see something when you're a kid,
just don't.
he's just a legend. But I mean, so yeah, I mean, it's really cool when you can get like-minded people to come together and talk about these types of things, and you put yourself in a position of being an expert, because if I'm going to talk about something, I know what I'm talking about, and I don't know it all. And that's the other aspect of this. When you're talking to people, they put you in that perspective of, I've seen this movie 5 times, 10 times, whatever it is, and Rebecca is one that you should never, this should be in your vocabulary, you know what I mean? And when I hear you say something like that, I value your opinion on music so much already, and now horror movies too. So I'm like, okay, these are the movies that I want to get under my skin, you know what I mean? Because there's so many films like you get engaged with over time. It's something you watched as a child or as a kid, like The Exorcist when you were 13, and it stays with you. It's like, why, someone asked me, I see you take pictures of your records and everything. What's up with Blackula? And I was like, well, and then I would tell, my Blackula story and why it fits predominantly. It's not my favorite horror movie, but it's like one of the first. And
Omar,
so that,
what's your Blackula, by the way?
Yeah, what's yours?
Oh,
yeah, what's your gateway drug?
Wow. That's I'm trying to think. Well, I mean, all right. So I saw Exorcist when I was 13, and it was old at the time. But that one's that scared the hell out of me. But when I was younger, I was more into like the Godzillas, King Kongs, the giant monsters. So the old Toho films, Gamera, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I used to love that stuff when I was a kid. Yeah. So I don't know. It's hard to pinpoint on one thing, but
2000. Or like what Godzilla?
No, the old 60s Godzilla. Yeah, like because they used to play them on like it was like a public access channel, and they'd play these old movies. They'd put like 9 Godzilla movies, on
a Saturday.
After the other. And hell yeah,
like on Channel 9.
That's right.
Channel 9 locally.
WWOR.
Yeah, WOR
right.
TV was a local channel in New Jersey and New York. So if you watch on Channel 9, it was like, there was no original programming. Their programming was, like he said, it was a monster movies, sci-fi. It was anything that they would put on Channel 9.
Have you seen that YouTube video that is like the evolution of the appearance of Godzilla over?
I've seen a couple of them. That's
literally like it's the actual. It goes into like beautifully nerdy detail about all of the subtle aesthetic changes in Godzilla appearance from each movie. It's so cool to watch. It's so entertaining.
It's funny because like the movies are super campy. I mean, they're just ridiculous, but they're just so much fun, And I just sit, I'd sit and watch them, and I took, had some clips that I picked up on YouTube, and I showed them to my nephew, and they were just so outrageous. Like, Godzilla's flying backwards using the fire like a rocket, and it was just
I
so
love that.
campy and
I love that.
cheesy. But I love that stuff. It was just ridiculous. It's like so bad it's good, and that's another thing, is I love movies like that. Plan 9, all of that. Stuff that's like really awful, but just so much fun to watch.
Some some really campy horror movies for that, where they're not good, but they're still fun.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one that I didn't get to see that came out in the maybe the 90s. It was called Birdocalypse, I think, or something like that, and it was super low budget, and it's supposed to be like the birds. And
what is it, on the Sci-Fi Channel?
I think so. It was just released. They had released it in the 90s at around the same time that Room came out, The Room, which was also really bad but so great. But that's one that I still haven't seen, that I've got to see. I've seen the special effects, and they're not so special. Right? Like, awful. This movie is like on a $10 budget, man. But I just love that stuff. It's great. It's just so much fun.
Yeah, I remember watching Frogs in like grade 2.
Oh my God, I love that movie
too. I thought it was the scariest story I've ever seen. Doesn't hold up as well.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, but it's still fun.
Right?
Yeah. I think maybe that should be our next list that we do, is like the top 10 so bad it's good movies, or top 5 or whatever. Yeah.
Well,
now you're in our comfort zone. Yeah.
So we're gonna hold that. We'll put a pin in that, and we'll get you guys to come back, and we'll do another one, and we'll do another so bad it's good.
Well, then
absolutely.
Between now and then, I'm going to try to get the wax made pressing of the Troll 2 soundtrack.
So Jesus! We said so bad it's good. It's so bad it's just bad.
No, but that pressing.
The pressing. Oh no!
You've seen that pressing.
I've seen it, and the one thing that I was like, I want this just to have it because it looks so good, but I'm like, this movie sucks. Like, I'm not a fan. And I'm like, am I going to spend $45-$50 on a soundtrack? It's pretty, but
yeah.
So bad it's bad.
But I had to draw a line, because you guys know we don't, the thing that we talk about. Hey, did you buy this record? Oh man, I would like to, but it's so fucking expensive, or it's Christmas time. We got to figure out how we're going to spend this money. What are we gonna? You can't buy it all.
Nope.
Although you wish you could.
Didn't buy it all. Buy the stuff that resonates with you, and that's it. Develop a strong enough identity that everything doesn't resonate with you.
Exactly. That's the thing. It's like, yeah, that looks great, but I'm not a fan enough to buy that, to have it in my collection just to have. Yeah. That's like, I'll see giveaways. People give away records all the time, and there's like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, hey, great, I'm liking and following the guy's posts or whatever it is, but if I win, I would just say, hey, give it to somebody else,
Yeah,
like,
for sure. That's nice.
But
guys, Lenny, Omar, thank you so much for having us. This was better than we could have hoped, and for the fact that we got to have our own little personal conversations extend to other people that have their own unique and awesome opinions. It's really cool. Don't you think?
Yeah, thanks guys. Awesome. I'm happy you guys made it on here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll let you know when this goes up. Probably in the next day or two. We're gonna make some adjustments and put it up, and then we'll give you guys a heads up.
Yeah, please do.
Awesome.
Thank you, Lenny.
All right, thank you everyone for joining
Thanks
Cinema Slaughter. We really look forward to seeing you next time, and have a great night, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
You guys too. See you later.
Bye.
Peace.
Bye, guys.